While OnePlus devices have always been champions when it came to offering great specifications and performance at an affordable price point, one thing that they almost fell short on are the cameras itself. Although many would assume that OnePlus devices always had good cameras, it never really was the case. Take the latest OnePlus 5 for example. On paper and in their marketing campaigns, OnePlus highlighted the device as packing the best cameras possible. They went for an Apple-like approach with a wide-angle and telephoto lens combination. Not a bad setup, but the implementation was poor. 2x zoom was advertised, but the fine print revealed that it was in fact 1.6x optical zoom and 0.4x digital zoom. It did have a few merits such as the good front-facing camera and brilliant video recording, especially thanks to EIS. But still, the OnePlus 5 fell short on camera front, especially compared to other flagships, considering how OnePlus devices are often termed as flagship killers. Now, with the 5T in the picture, it seems that OnePlus has learned from their mistakes and adopted a new, albeit confusing setup. Gone is the wide-angle and telephoto combination. Instead, users get two wide-angle cameras, both of which have f1.7 aperture, 27mm focal length, and 1x2.8" sensor size. One sensor is a Sony IMX398 with 1.12 micron pixel size, while the other sensor, which OnePlus claims is used for the low light shots, is a Sony IMX376K with 1 micron pixel size and 20 megapixels of resolution. It is confusing because usually the more the megapixels, the higher the noise levels, and the larger the pixels, the lower the noise levels. So by right, the regular camera unit seems to be the one that is more optimized for low light, on paper at least. Why didn't OnePlus opt for an RGB plus monochrome combination, or at least the same 16 megapixel resolution for the low light camera? Either way, let's just dive in and see how they perform. The regular camera itself seems to be very similar to the one on the OnePlus 5. It's the same unit after all, and the image quality is good but not great. The colors are quite good, somewhere between natural and punchy, and the overall exposure as well as white balance is handled well. Focus is on 0.2, however the sharpness isn't too great. Things look decent at a glance, but zooming in reveals the details to be a bit mushy and overall pretty soft for the resolution it packs. Dynamic range again remains the same, more or less, which means that it still isn't very impressive. It's a hit or miss, and sometimes the HDR mode yields some good results, while at other times it fails to impress. You may also have a better shot with the HQ mode that adds some clarity and slightly more depth to the entire scene at times. One weird thing is that OnePlus have enabled Beautify by default on the rear camera as well. You need to head into the settings to disable it, and make sure you do because photos turn out to be softer than it should otherwise. Despite there being no telephoto camera on board, the 5T still gives you an option to do 2x zoom. I expected this to produce some really soft and bad looking images. However, I was pleasantly surprised to see that it works pretty well. While it still produces a softer and less detailed image than the OnePlus 5 that uses its telephoto camera and zoom for the 2x field of view, the 5T manages to give nearly as good a sharpness and detailing without any optical zoom whatsoever. In fact, the software even interpolates the image back to 16 megapixels of resolution, without which the resolution should have been only around 8 megapixels. Portrait mode too stays on, which OnePlus calls depth effect. While the OnePlus 5 had a 1.6x magnification for the portrait mode, the 5T has a Google-like approach with blur being applied on a wide-angle camera. Here again, I was pretty happy with the results that the 5T produced. Seems like OnePlus has worked a fair bit on the algorithm to improve the edges, and most importantly, sharpness on the desired object in focus remains unaffected. OnePlus 5 used to have a weird sort of softness even on the area in focus, but that's not there on the 5T. The depth effect even works wonderfully well in low light conditions, although here it does tend to lose out a bit in terms of detail and sharpness due to the noise reduction. Coming to what is possibly the most important aspect of the new 5T, the low light performance. I'll say this outright. The 5T is miles ahead of the OnePlus 5 in terms of low light performance. The OnePlus 5 was honestly speaking pretty bad in this area, and so it is probably easier for the 5T to live up to expectations. However, the 5T actually performs pretty well under low light conditions when it comes to the noise levels. The 5 used to exhibit very high levels of noise under low light, but the 5T doesn't. OnePlus says that when the light dips below 10 lux, the low light camera kicks in. The 5T apparently merges 4 pixels into 1, but that would mean the resolution would become 5 megapixels. However, that isn't the case. The end resolution for low light images still remains 20 megapixels, which means that they're either interpolating the images just like with the 2x zoom, or they actually meant that they would be stacking 4 pixels on top of each other and using the intelligent pixel technology to subtract out the noise. The latter seems like the more obvious choice to me, so OnePlus needs to get their wording right. Despite the good noise performance, one thing that remains unchanged is the mushy details. Zooming into the photo would still yield some weird artifacts and soft objects as well as subjects. Still an improvement overall to the OnePlus 5. The front camera is still the same 16MP Sony IMX371 with f2 aperture and 1 micron pixel size. No complaints here considering that the OnePlus 5 had one of the best front-facing cameras in any segment, and the 5T can also boast the same. A depth mode or portrait mode would have been nice, but maybe they can add it later with a software update. The low light performance is pretty good too, with little noise appearing in the photos. Another strong point of the OnePlus 5 was videos, and the 5T still continues to offer that. You can record up to 4K 30fps with both the cameras, and it still has a 2x zoom mode in this too. However, there's no zoom in or zoom out transition when recording. The always on EIS makes sure that footage is incredibly stable and it works in both 4K and 1080p 30fps modes. Especially when walking or running, it creates amazing footage, although it tends to get a bit jerky when panning. 1080p 60fps mode is also available, but there's no EIS involved, so we recommend using it only with a gimbal or on a tripod. The front-facing camera too packs an EIS, and the 5T is a great tool for vloggers, especially considering the video quality and stabilization. I don't think there are too many smartphones out there that can outdo the 5T in terms of front camera video. So this is the OnePlus 5T capturing 1080p video with EIS, and the OnePlus 5 was already one of the best smartphones when it came to the front-facing camera in terms of video, and the 5T seems to be just as good if not better. So let me know how it is actually in terms of detailing, sharpness, and how it's capturing my noise as well. We are in front of a busy street right now, and there's a lot of wind noise also happening. So if it's actually capturing my audio well, then it's a really good job that the OnePlus 5T is actually doing. Also let me know how the overall sharpness is, how it's keeping track of the focus, the detailing, as well as the dynamic range. Thanks. It also supports 720p slow motion videos as well, but honestly speaking, the quality isn't too great and has a tendency to hunt for focus. The OnePlus 5T is perhaps the first time that I feel that I can use a OnePlus device as my primary camera phone and be content with it. The low light performance isn't the best, but it has been improved a lot, and OnePlus delivers almost everything that it promised with the 5T. One question that still lingers in my mind though is why couldn't the low light camera have been used for good lighting conditions too? Wouldn't it have worked just as well? And did we really need to sacrifice the telephoto if so? Either way, I'm still happy that we have a good camera setup finally, rather than a setup that consists of two different focal lengths that aren't very good. If you have been holding off getting a OnePlus device because of the camera, then the 5T is probably the one that could change your mind. That's it for the video guys. You can purchase the OnePlus 5 and 5T from the link in the description below. Thanks for watching. See you again in the next one.